Welcome back to the Underground Strategy Podcast. My name is Max, and today Tony and Serhii are going to continue their discussion about war, recovery, and improv. Enjoy.
Serhii, before the war, you were already a pioneer in improvisational theater in Kiev. And, just to give us and our listeners a bit of background, how did you first discover improv in your own life and what drew you to it?
That is a very good question. Prior to discovering improv, I was an entertainer. I was an MC for events. I did some team building events, just a lot of interactive. I loved crowd work. I loved a lot of fun stuff. But then you remember the crisis of 2008. That was a big crisis and it hit me a lot. A lot of my clients, a lot of my potential gigs and projects just disappeared. So I ended up in not being able to find any clients. So that was the time when I thought, I need to become a brand. I need to become somebody, not just an entertainer for corporate events. I need to become the brand and have people to come to my events, do something. And that was the first, and I had traveled a few times to the States by that time. Since 1993, I've traveled a lot. Like I've visited about 40 states in the United States. And I had been to some of the improv before that, but I thought that's too much. That's too high. I can't reach that. I'm not a comedian. There is no way I can do that. But then the crisis made me think, okay, how about if I start? So I searched for some videos. At that time, YouTube was not that many of good stuff, but I had asked a friend to bring me a CD with Whose Line Is It Anyway? The big show of improvisation, TV show, and that gave me tons of ideas. And then I started on the internet, started looking for some connections and stuff, and I joined lots of different fellowships and communities. They had shared with me some of the notes from their college degrees, art degrees of their improv classes and stuff. Due to knowing English, I had collected a lot of stuff, and so I started experimenting in 2009. At first, for the first several years, I could not even charge anybody, to do that. There was other ways I was able to make some money, but still, because I did not feel I'm an artist enough for the people to buy tickets to come to. So what I did was I just created a community and people would come. A show of, let's try this game. That's the show. I saw this on a video. Let's try this game. This is the way it's done. Let's go. So, okay, we'll try it. Something needs to be changed. Let's call on other people. Let's play another version of this. And so this is the way we did. It was just a good laughing community of a lot of interesting people that joined, some celebrities, friends. So this improv club in 2009 later on became a good hub to meet a lot of good people that I still know and admire. But it was also a point for me to become a media person. That was the moment where I was able to become known for improvisation. I was the only one that did the short form. There were some theaters that practiced like typical theatrical improvisation formats, but the short form comedy improv, I was the only one doing. Later on, a few others started some successful projects, but being the pioneer pretty much made it. I started developing it in a way that then in 2012 and 13, I developed several directions. So improvision, a vision of life through improvisation, it's more of a teaching, personal development format where I would get people that would pay for the workshops for, getting the skills and all the good things. And then improversity, that's the English through improv. Those really paid well because this is where the people really had an actual need. They need to break the barrier. They've known enough of English, but they can't speak well. Those are the formats that, launched a lot of things, a lot of groups and a lot of weekend clubs and all those things. This is where, like in my online course for the teachers, I tell them that level 1 is for the teachers, but level 2, if you want to become self-sufficient. And so I share all of my experience, how I make living with improv English speaking clubs because there's several things that come together. First, it's unique. It's different from other speaking clubs. Secondly, there is English. And a lot of top managers really need to get out of their stiffness with the English language. And so that really, was working great. And then team improvisation. That's another corporate format where I would turn a collective of people into a team, So that's how it really, really developed.
It's amazing, Serhii, and I really like that innovative style because you brought a few things together. And it seems to me it was a journey, right? Like just the way you explained it. But the journey doesn't stop with, you developing your personal brand, the English element, the theater element, the stand-up, the show element. But you go on and you take that all the way through into your military service. And then you use that. So not only are you doing something artistic and amazing, but then you're using it to help people with their trauma. And do you think that was more beneficial perhaps when people could connect with that improvisation, like a soldier that had been through a difficult time, to give him some sort of maybe tools or coping mechanisms or something like that?
Well, they say that God gives you obstacles to prepare for something for your mission. I could say that in this specific time of my life, all my preparations with the improv, though fun, though beneficial, all that stuff, prepared me for starting Improv 450. 450, that's a radio code for everything's okay. That's the 450. That's what they use in texting or on radio. So 450, that's kind of like for 11 years, that's what our guys use on the radio. So that's why Improv 450, everything's okay. It will be okay. We can go through it. Actually, the first improv in the war zone, in the combat zone, I did with my own company, first company in Kharkiv. That was a couple of days of us moving from one positions to from other positions. So we were stationed in one certain area, and I was able to get a good laugh from the guys, creating a lot of improvisational, just fun. The only purpose there was fun. Just get fun. Get as absurd as you can, yes. As nonsense as you can, yes. But let's just laugh at each other, We have a saying, you cannot offend your brother, but laughing at your brother and putting him on spot is a sacred thing. It's a good thing. You can just play a joke with him, but you cannot offend him. That's the thing. And so keeping the humor, that's one thing. But then in 2024, I started using, when I relocated more back to Kyiv, still serving, but that was the time when I had issues with my health. So I was in and out of the hospital. So that was the time when I was able to develop this program for a center of mental health and psychological health to our soldiers. So twice a week, we started going. I got a couple of civilians, good improvisers. They're rockstar improv. They're like very good improvisers in Kyiv, in Ukrainian, of course, but they were good. And so they really wanted to help the military. And because I am the military, I am the officer, I am the combatant, I was the door to the guys in the center, in the clinic. So I would bring them in and we would start doing improvisations. I would explain a lot of things, how improvisation works on stage, in the classroom, and how those principles work in life. There was emotional part where they had a lot of laughter, a lot of good emotions. They were able to touch back with their emotions. You see, the psychological clinic, that's where they were there after a lot of trauma and concussions and a lot of moral and psychological trauma. We would talk about their different call signs. That's my entry, pretty much. That's always bring fun because sometimes there are very funny stories beside the call signs, Like my call sign is charizmat, like charismatic, but we say it charismat. And there are many other call signs of different guys, and there are sometimes very funny stories. Like one story is like the guy said the newly formed unit, and so everyone picked call sign for themselves, and one guy said, oh, I want my call sign to be Lord, just like this English word, Lord. And, Lord, come on, why don't you find something like Ukrainian or whatever? We cannot even pronounce it on the radio or whatever, Lord, so. But then the incoming shelling started and they all hit the underground fortification. And when he was going in, he hit the ceiling. He hit the log. He hit with his forehead. And the next morning, he had like blue eyes, big time. And everyone was laughing and they said, you're not Lord, you're Panda. So now he had call sign Panda. So those kinds of stories, they really build a rapport and people start sharing. And then little by little, with the easiest improvisational activities that I would invite somebody. So because with my background of a showman and entertainment, I was able to organize it. The little prizes would always be there. Like I would make some good cups with the brand Improv 450 to give away, or little lottery tickets. So people had fun, and there were several rules. One is when you are in the meeting, you don't have to participate. You have all the rights not to participate. Just watch. We're thankful that you are here. That's it. And I would still give him a lottery ticket, and he would still participate in the lottery, though he has not participated like in some games. So there are a lot of psychological build-up within each group. From the outside, it looks casual. It looks to whatever, nothing special. But there's specific planning because of a specific audience that we had. Some of those guys from captivity. Some of those guys former POWs. And so there were certain topics or certain things and that we need to be aware of dealing with them. Basically, it's a group therapy. And now the clinic loved it so much, they call it recreational therapy for the guys. Sometimes they call it laughter therapy, but there is even more than just laughter, more than just emotions. It's about changing the paradigm, helping them see the potential, see that there is life. Life is still going. You are able to helping them being able to see forward and the options. Like one of the things improv teaches is seeing the possibilities amongst the obstacles. That's a huge paradigm shift for many people. Those that are geared to see the obstacles first. And that's why they kill their dreams, they kill their ideas and kill ideas of others, because they see only the obstacles. But improv teaches vice versa. Improv helps to see that step by step, there is a way. There is always a way. There is always a way out of the obstacle. You just need to concentrate on the things that you can control and change, and stop worrying about the things that are out of your control.
This content doesn't make itself, and we're fueled by cold beer and hot strategy. Buy us around at undergroundstrategy.com/support. It's how legends are made. Now back to it.
That's some good advice. I think a lot of our listeners will be writing to us about that, but that's some good advice, Serhii. And in your book, Path to Effectiveness, do you maybe want to mention something about that, some of the teachings and the principles in that book? We'll, of course, add it into the show notes for our listeners.
Well, unfortunately, the book is only in Ukrainian for now. We did our first attempt to translate through AI, but it has to be very much corrected. So unfortunately, there is no time to translate it so far. But in this book, I share a lot of my personal experience. Again, I published it in 2024, but I did not add the experience from war yet because it wouldn't have ended at all. And in the 2022, I really put it back into the publisher and really wanted to finish it because there was a few times that I thought that I'm not coming home. So I wanted to have something left after me. And that's the book that shares a lot of different insights on improv, how improv really helps to be successful in the chaos surrounding and still being able to make some order out of your chaos, still be able to see the next step, still be able to run the marathon without knowing what's ahead of you. And so, like the yes and rule, that's the rule, universal rule of improv. In fact, that's the yes and rule is in the description of the NATO standard of after action review. So they're like big thing about that the moderators need to learn to run their discussions with the yes and attitude. And so I'm like, oh, you really? Let me explain to you what it means. The yes and, that's a big shift in the paradigm. Like for me, February 24 of 2022, that I had to say a big yes and, accept what is inevitable, what is there, and to find the best step, what to do next. So I always use this example that yes and in improv, it's, fun, get this joke and build it up and move forward. But in improv, they say that whatever comes your way, consider it as a gift. Even if your partner fails, even if the audience gives you something that you don't understand completely or whatever, accept it as a gift and then work with this, because if you take it as a gift, then you can really make a candy out of it. Well, accepting February 24 of 2022 as a gift was kind of difficult. But in reality, if you cannot do anything about it, you cannot change it. You cannot turn the time back. You cannot undo it. You'd better accept it and use it for the progress. Use it to move on. Though it takes courage with our case, yes, it takes the understanding that this is like Irpin was for us. We all knew that's a one-way ticket. We were not planning to come back. I called from Irpin to my son, who is now serving as well. But at that time, he was, 23? He was hiding in the basement from the shelling, and I transferred all the money from my bank account. I gave him instructions what to do, whatever, with whatever, and that's it. That was the moment. So improv helps to get out of your stagnation, because you can always see that, hey, there is always and. Like when the people or soldiers in the front line, when I would meet with them, they would say, yeah, we don't have this. We don't have this. We have problems with this. Don't have this. We don't have this. We don't have this. Don't have this. And I'm like, okay, what else? This. Okay. What else? This. What else? This. And then I'm like, and we still have to fight. We still have to find a way to come around. We need to find the creative resources. And thankfully, like our nation is such a powerful and volunteering, like so many volunteers that really help the units, the companies, the battalions, the brigades with a lot of vital things. You'd be surprised that the volunteers provide sometimes even like air defense or drones or FPVs or now the army is provided with like food, uniform and everything. So the volunteers now are providing more of a like high-tech stuff. They're like developing communities of researching new possibilities and stuff. This is crazy.
And that doesn't surprise me, Serhii, because, Ukraine, a modern European country with all the brain power, all the resources. I know, of course, under strain now because of the war, but it doesn't surprise me that, that everyone's stepping forward into that, even going into the R&D space, because it's a country that's has one objective, and with that power behind it, I'm not surprised at all. Before I move on, just thank you for sharing that about your book and that difficult moment, and this idea of leaving a legacy. And I know many of us will be waiting for that book in English, and we'll be giving it a good push when it comes out. As we're coming to the close, what else would you like our listeners to know? Is there something that we missed out, or just a few points, anything else that you want to just mention?
Well, as much as I want to talk about improv, I need to get back to the reality. Unfortunately, the big shift of the understanding of what is really going on, I need to probably make a few clear points about the history. In the 90s, early 90s, when Ukraine had just come out of the Soviet Union, Ukraine held a third number of nuclear weapons in the world. That was a legacy from the Soviet Union. When somebody tries to say that, oh, it was all Russians, no, it was your problem that you called Soviet Union Russia, okay? It was the Soviet Union with 15 republics, and Ukraine was one of it. So we held and owned the third arsenal in the world of the nuclear weapons. Definitely sound like a big problem for Russia and America. So they concentrated on the idea that Ukraine needs to give it up. Guess why we gave it up? Because Russia, the United States, and the UK gave the guarantees that you guys, you have no worries. You will always stay untouchable. That's it. No war. Nobody is going to invade you or attack you or whatever. So, saying this, let's come back. Now in the 2014, Russia had annexed Crimea. And somebody says, oh, it's because Ukraine wanted to join NATO. No. Now look at Finland, look at other northern countries that joined NATO. So now the borderline with the NATO has doubled. I mean, is much bigger now, even without Ukraine being in NATO. And Russia has no issues with that. So the real issue is that Russia, for hundreds of years, never liked Ukraine with its uniqueness, with its culture, completely different culture, completely different values, completely different language. They had always conquered, they had always fight with us and on our territory. So now with all the massacres, all the war crimes that they had done to Ukrainians because they are Ukrainians. Now another fake is that the Russians supposedly is liberating the Russian-speaking Ukrainians that were supposedly pressured by the Ukrainian government. That's fake, because if you look at the map, all of the territories that are destroyed by the Russians, guess what majority of the speaking population was? The Russian populations. So they don't care. When they killed just last night, yesterday, when they attacked Kryvyi Rih, it's a city in Ukraine, yesterday, during the day, just like out in the sun, they attacked with huge missiles, long-range missiles, the playground, killing 9 children, 9 adults, and 50 plus adults and children wounded. Most of those people are Russian-speaking. This is a fake. And many other things, but these are the key points for you to understand. This is a genocide. They are fighting the Ukrainians because we are Ukrainians. Like the POWs, the prisoners of war, when they come out with the tortures, a lot of tortures. Like you see this, my tattoo, right? With the patch of my battalion. Some of the guys, like a lot of guys, had our national symbols as tattooed. Well, they were tortured just because of that. Why would you do that if you had other targets and aims that you proclaim? Because those are fake. The reality is that the Russians hate Ukrainians. That's it. They want them dead. They want Ukrainians denationalized. So they want us to become Russians. Like all of my life, I'm 53. All of my life, I spoke Russian. I went into Ukrainian. I really started seriously going back to my home language only in like 2015, 16, 17, after the first hybrid invasion of Crimea and other parts of Ukraine. So a lot of people now moved to Ukrainian. They really understood that that's the point. And if somebody says, well, Russia had the right to come in because those people were Russian speaking, would that be fair to say that the UK and England can take over America? Oops, did I say that? Because they speak English? So those kinds of fakes, and they're promoted by bots and trolls on the internet. You just need to stop believing them. That's it.
No, for sure. I think the Americans are going to enjoy that. They're going to throw us back to their war of independence.
I'm sorry. I have so many friends from America. I love America.
I know. I was trying to take a line from the Improv, just to try and make a joke myself.
Yeah, well, you did it. But I still want to, just in case, to make sure that those that are listening.
Yeah.
I have no problem. I have a lot of merchandise, like a hat and T-shirts with American flag. And I had the patch, American flag, on my bulletproof vest with the Ukrainian flag, So this is crazy.
No, 100% with you. It's an allied war effort. And, thank you for those points. And no, I think everyone will understand. We're just joking around. It's a very common joke anyway, between the Brits and the Americans. But thank you for those last points and for giving us, the context that so many are living with at the moment. I also want to thank our mutual friend Kostya.
Yes, I'm voiceovering his book. That's going to be a very exciting book, Management in Time of War. And I'm voiceovering in English, so it will be an audio version, which is great. And now we're putting together the leadership in times of war. And that's where I put my chapter there on improv and resilience. So that's going to be very exciting.
No, that's brilliant. I strongly support this initiative, as you know, Management in Times of War for Leadership in Times of War. The chapter that I submitted, I'm sure Kostya won't mind because we spoke about it. It speaks a little bit about what you touched on earlier, Serhii, that leaders often don't start a war. The leaders inherit the crisis. And that's why it just chimes so well with what you said about yes and you can look at whether it's President Zelensky, Eisenhower, whether it was Winston Churchill, whether it was Nelson Mandela. They inherited a crisis, but they responded. And that's what made them great, in how they responded. And not only them, everyone under them, who went in that same direction. Sorry that we're peddling our own work here, but the excellent chapter from Serhii, and there'll be one from myself. So, we're going to have Kostya back on and hopefully some of the authors too later on this year, as that book launches. And then also, as Serhii mentioned, to look out for the audiobook, Management in Times of War.
Yeah. Is your chapter in the management as well?
No, mine will come in Leadership in Times of War.
Okay, because I need to practice your accent when I voice over it.
I mean, this South African accent of mine, it's I look forward to it. You're very talented, and I heard some of the clips. So I'm giving it away to our listeners, but just on social media and the WhatsApp, I've heard some of the clips, and it was very good. As we come to a close now, I want to thank Serhii for being with us today and for sharing so much of his life and all the good work that's being done. And then also, once again, just to salute all those that have fallen. And thank you to our listeners.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.